Family helps family, my brother said, pocketing my cash while vacationing. His Insta showed why, $27K gone, I asked for it back. Now he faces prison. I never imagined I'd be composing a story like this, but I genuinely need some outside opinions because I'm starting to think I'm losing it. All this began 2 years back when my brother Elias came back to our town with his wife Freya and their children, Matthew, 8, and Riley, 5. They stated they were moving to be near family, however, things have become complex. Initially, it was minor things. Freya would discuss how costly the kids' school supplies were, or Elias would talk about rising rent. Because I was in a good financial state, I'd offer some help occasionally. Several $100s for books and backpacks, maybe paying for a grocery shopping trip when they were struggling. Helping family felt good, but the requests started becoming bigger and more often. Last summer, they needed $2,000 for urgent car repairs. Elias sent pictures of the car on a tow truck, mentioning how he couldn't get to work without it. Then there was the time they were 3 months behind on their house payment. Another $1,000, with $500 of it coming from me, in order to assist them with getting up to date. Every time, there were tears and pledges to give the money back to me quickly. The children became part of the situation as well. Freya would send me images of Matthew looking sad because he couldn't go on a school field trip, or Riley needing new winter clothing. I just didn't have the financial resources at the moment. Believe me, I have feelings too. This involves my niece and nephew. My girlfriend Emery picked up on some hints before I did. She'd make small remarks about how Freya always seemed to have perfectly styled hair or how Elias always had the newest phone. I simply dismissed it. Perhaps they had different values that I didn't get. Possibly they were just trying to maintain a certain image while dealing with their own difficulties. Then yesterday happened. While I was idly browsing Instagram, I saw it. My scrolling finger just stopped. There it was, Freya's story. Uploaded only a few hours after they said they couldn't afford Matthew's school materials for this month. She was relaxing beside an infinity pool at a fancy resort, sporting designer sunglasses and sipping a vibrant blue drink from a coconut. The accompanying text said, "Paradise found, amazing deal." My gut twisted. I began to carefully look over her profile. There were so many posts that I had somehow failed to notice or disregarded. High-end restaurants, fancy date nights, quick weekend getaways. Sometimes you just need a break. Pictures of shopping trips with bags from shops that I couldn't afford. The worst part was that in the comments on a post about their low-cost family holiday, Freya wrote back to a friend, "When you have a generous brother, anything's doable." And there were a bunch of laughing emojis. I felt awful. 2 years of asking, tears, and guilt trips about the children, and they're posting about lavish resorts. I went through my bank records. Over $27,000, that's what I'd given them. I've provided them with $27,000 since they came back, and all the while they're putting up pictures of themselves at the pool and flaunting their shopping trips. This morning I attempted to reach Elias. He sent me straight to voicemail 2 times before shooting me a text that read, "Kinda swamped right now, bro. What's up?" I then sent him screenshots of Freya's social media. His reply, "Don't be that guy." He added, "We're family. Every once in a while, family helps each other. You're doing pretty great for yourself. Why does it even matter how we spend our funds?" Their funds. I'm still trying to figure out what to make of his reply. I called my folks, hoping they might be able to talk some sense into him. However, what I got from them was a suggestion to just let it go since family is more important than money. But can it really be about family anymore when they're practically mocking me for it online? Freya must have realized I had seen her posts, since the majority of them have vanished now. She sent me a lengthy message about how I'm misinterpreting everything, how the resort was a truly excellent deal, and how they were just trying to provide the kids with some normal experiences despite their difficulties. She concluded it with a picture of the children looking somber, stating they were asking why Uncle Lincoln was angry with them. I haven't answered anybody yet. I feel so foolish for not realizing what was happening earlier. My folks want me to drop the whole thing. Emery believes I should sue. I'm currently sitting here, staring at my financial records and screenshots of deleted Instagram posts, and I am asking myself how I let this go on. I've been wrestling with this for ages. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Do you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? There are more details to this situation that I'm still figuring out, but I needed a place to share it. Any insights would be welcome. At the moment, I really have no idea what I should do next. Quick update. First of all, I really appreciate everyone's reaction to my previous post. I went through every single comment, and you helped me understand that I wasn't wrong to feel like I'd been betrayed. A lot has gone down during the last week, and none of it is good news. After considering your thoughts, I made the decision to hire a private investigator. Emery knew someone trustworthy who didn't overcharge. I felt strange looking into my own brother's affairs, but I needed to know the whole story. What we uncovered made me sick. Remember how Elias told me he was having a tough time at work? It turns out he actually owns the company, not just one but 3 different locations. They are all listed under an LLC, which took me a long time to track down because it's named after a bunch of random digits. The Pi. Uncovered business paperwork revealing he'd purchased the second location 8 months ago. That was right. Around the time he asked to borrow $5,000 from me, claiming he needed it for past due rent. But it gets worse. Those supposed mortgage problems, they fully own their house, they paid cash for it. They also have a rental property a couple of towns over that brings in approximately $2,800 a month. The investigator found property records showing they bought it last year, precisely 2 weeks after I handed them that. I was facing a serious financial need, $2,000 to fix my car. And then there's the kids' school, which is costing me $15,000 per kid annually. Each one of them. They're not worried about pencils and notebooks. They're enrolled in one of the priciest schools in the whole state. That's the same school where Freya volunteers and shares Instagram stories about being a modest mother trying her hardest. Thinking about cars, that old, broken-down car that needed some work. They sold it 3 months ago, if I remember correctly. Now they're cruising around in matching, top-of-the-line SUVs. The investigator had pictures of both vehicles, parked in their garage. That's also the very same garage where Elias told me he was living on a diet of ramen noodles to make ends meet. I spent 2 days just trying to make sense of everything I was learning. Then I did something totally unexpected, even for me. Without any prior warning, I drove over to their house. The kids were at school and both of their cars were parked in the driveway. I went up to their door and rang the bell, clutching a folder crammed with evidence. Freya opened the door dressed in high-end workout clothes like she just finished an expensive workout. I'll never forget the look on her face when she saw me. She tried to shut the door, but I held up the folder. "We need to have a conversation about the 3 properties you own," I stated. That definitely got her attention. Then Elias showed up trying to act casual. "Dude, you could have at least called first," he said, acting as if this was a totally normal visit. I walked past them and into their kitchen, which they had remodeled right after telling me they couldn't pay their utilities. $27,000, I said, placing the bank statement on the counter. Plus interest. I then laid out all the property documents. I was trying to figure out how they could have purchased a rental property only 14 days after I covered the cost of their car repairs. Do you know what their reaction was? They chuckled. They actually thought it was funny. Elias put his arm around Freya and said, "Oh, come on, it's not like you're strapped for cash or anything. We're a family. Family looks out for family." I gestured toward their identical watches. "Is that what family does, deceives and swindles?" Freya looked at me dismissively. "It's not really stealing if you offered it without question. Plus, we plan to pay you back. Someday when we were more secure financially." Secure, I held up their business ledgers. Like owning 3 stores secure or a rental property secure. Their whole demeanor shifted in a hurry. Elias tried to pull the family connection again. "Consider the children, Lincoln. What will they think? If their uncle goes to court against their mom and dad, you should have considered the kids before you thought about using them to try and twist my arm," I shot back. "Exactly how much were those private school fees again?" Then Freya lost it. "You're just envious because we're brilliant when it comes to managing our money. Yes, we took advantage of your willingness to help. So what? You have a good job, you can handle it. We needed the initial funds to get our business going. Banks charge interest. You don't." I just stood there looking at these people I had. My own brother, the woman who consistently sends me photos of my niece and nephew to emotionally blackmail me into giving them money, standing in their luxury kitchen, dressed in expensive clothes, telling me I should. I guess I'm okay with getting ripped off because we're supposed to be family. Just before leaving, I gave them another piece of paper. It was an official request for the money back, written by my attorney. They have a month to either pay the entire amount or work out a repayment schedule that includes interest. Elias tried to ball it up and toss it, but Freya prevented him. She probably understood from my face that I was dead serious. An hour later, Freya put something on Instagram. Some individuals reveal their true nature when they witness someone else doing well. It's depressing when family lets cash create conflict. The comments are all in her favor. People are calling me awful for wanting the money back. She's mastering the victim role. I got messages from my mom and dad saying I'm breaking up the family. It seems Elias told them I violated their privacy by hearing a private investigator. They're not even disputing what happened anymore. They're just furious that I found out. I've only replied to my lawyer. The letter's message is simple. There are 25 days remaining for them to do something. Emery suggested we report them for possible tax evasion due to some inconsistencies the private investigator uncovered. I'm still trying to sort through everything, however. It's the most challenging part of all. Yesterday, Matthew gave me a call. My mom says we are no longer welcome at their house because I've been treating them poorly. They're manipulating the children to get to me once again, but I won't be giving in this time. I will give another update as soon as I have more news to share. Presently, I need to decide what to do next. The proof is undeniable, although family dynamics are seldom straightforward. At least I know the truth now, even though I'd rather not. Update number 2. A brief update first. Elias and Freya ignored the formal letter. They decided to go on the offensive on social media and through their family. However, things didn't exactly work out the way they'd hoped. Everything started at my cousin's baby shower last week. I wasn't planning on going, but Emery persuaded me that staying away would make me look bad. The second I arrived, I could feel the negativity in the air. Relatives I'd known my whole life suddenly became engrossed in their phones or hovered at the food table. My Aunt Sarah caught me by the present table. "How could you do this to your own brother?" she yelled at me. When I inquired about the nature of his struggles, after everything, she then began recounting a narrative about Elias' supposed complete loss in a failed enterprise. She described how he was now employed at the lowest possible wage just to provide for his household. That's when it hit me. They'd been giving each family member different versions of the truth. Certain family members thought Elias was swamped with medical costs. Other relatives had heard about the supposed business troubles. One of my cousins even believed Freya had lost her job due to lingering COVID-19 symptoms. It seemed they had carefully fabricated a complex web of deception, carefully designed to elicit the most sympathy from each person in our family. But here's where it becomes very revealing. Let me remind you of the letter I sent demanding payment. Despite ignoring it, they obviously did pay attention to the information my private investigator discovered. They had been working hard to erase social media posts and request that friends untag them from images taken at pricey restaurants and holiday locations. Still, they overlooked Aunt Mary's Facebook album that showcased holiday photos. There she was, in the background of a family snapshot, with Freya proudly displaying her extravagant new watch to the cousins. The exact watch she was sporting in a photograph taken just a week later, which read "Early Birthday Gift from the Hubs." This was only 2 days after I lent them $3,000, claiming it was needed. For an urgent root canal for Matthew. It wasn't my plan to reveal all of the details at the baby shower, but when Uncle Jim made very obvious comments about unappreciative relatives who forget their origins, I simply lost it. I quickly pulled out my mobile phone. I opened my meticulously organized evidence folder and mirrored it onto the television screen. Since everyone seemed so curious about my family's problems, I declared, "Let's discuss it." The atmosphere became still. For the next 10 minutes, I presented everything. I had bank transfers aligned with time-stamped vacation photos. I included property records and business registration information. My private investigator had also archived their deleted social media content. That was the most satisfying element. While I presented the evidence, my cousin Rachel interrupted. "Hold on," she said. "They said they needed money for car repairs back in September." Then she turned to her spouse, remembering they'd taken a $5,000 loan from them for Riley's medical treatments. It was like a dam had burst. People immediately began comparing experiences. My Aunt Mary admitted she'd given them $10,000 to address what they claimed were business obligations. Uncle Jim had been sending them monthly payments to cover the kids' therapy sessions. This was a therapy that, according to the private investigator's report, never took place. Even my aging grandparents were contributing funds from their retirement funds. Freya's carefully constructed victim story fell apart right before our eyes. She wasn't even present. She'd made up an excuse that Riley was unwell, but Elias was there. He sat in the corner, glued to his phone. As family members, one after the other, recounted how much they'd been swindled out of, the collective amount, just from those at the gathering, came to over $80,000. And those were only the ones willing to admit it. My own parents were also in attendance, and they had previously been defending a lie. I'd been talking about Elias and Freya for quite a while, Yet seeing the proof laid out like that, and hearing similar accounts from other family members, caused Mom to break down in tears. Dad just kept silently disagreeing, especially when we got to the section about them using the children to control people. Later that night, Freya put up a lengthy post on Facebook, complaining about how awful family members were spreading lies about them. She argued that they were being attacked for being ambitious and doing well. However, this time the comments weren't encouraging. Folks began asking pointed questions about specific loans. She removed the post in under an hour. The next morning, I was woken up by tons of messages from relatives, some apologizing for disbelieving me. Others were detailing their own experiences of being misled by Elias and Freya. A few offered to help, talk of legal action. But the message that really got to me was from Matthew's school friend's mother. Apparently, Matthew had been telling his buddies that his parents were too broke to buy food some weeks. He'd been taking snacks and lunch money from concerned parents, even though Freya was posting about their expensive weekend getaways. Using me was bad enough. Taking advantage of the whole family was even worse. However, manipulating their own kids to rip off other parents, that's when I knew this just couldn't go on. My attorney is now representing 6 family members in a joint legal action. 3 others are filing separate claims. The private investigator discovered evidence that indicates this runs deeper. They could have possibly been orchestrating the very same deceptive operation among their friends and at the children's school. This morning, Elias sent me a message. He wrote, "Are you pleased now? You've completely destroyed everything." There wasn't any recognition of their actions, not even an apology. It was all just fault-finding. I'm going to meet with my attorney first thing tomorrow to go over the upcoming actions. The family, for the most part, is now standing together. Even though things are coming together, the true struggle is just getting started. When things have been sorted out, I will give another update, but at the moment, I'm simply trying to come to terms with how much larger this whole situation was than I originally considered. This is my last time posting about this. It has been 3 months since I gave my last update, and everything has shifted drastically. I've been holding off on making this post until the situation calmed down, but truthfully, I'm not sure if it ever will. However, I can share that karma did eventually find Elias and Freya, although not how any of us predicted. Do you remember those inconsistencies the private investigator found within their company's finances? As it turned out, that was only the beginning of the issues. As our attorney really started investigating, we uncovered the fact that they weren't just ripping off relatives. They were operating a massive fraud scheme via their companies. They were creating bogus bills, hiding income, and making up employees, the whole shebang. The biggest shock came when a former worker contacted me on Reddit, believe it or not. This person had proof demonstrating how Elias and Freya were using their companies to clean money for some very dangerous people. We're talking about organized crime-type dealings. This employee had been secretly gathering records for a long time, too frightened to come forward previously. Our lawyer immediately sent everything to the authorities in charge. Federal agents got involved within a couple of weeks. The day they raided all 3 of their business locations simultaneously was intense. Freya was still putting up Instagram posts about people who were jealous of successful folks and trying to bring them down. They collected sufficient evidence in the first hour to freeze all of their holdings. Every single bank account, piece of property, and car they owned was seized. It turned out those fancy vacations weren't only paid for with family loans. They were how Elias and Freya transferred money to other places without looking suspicious. My children are living with my parents at the moment. This was my one requirement when dealing with the authorities. They sought my assistance. It felt wrong that Matthew and Riley were subjected to this. They are finally receiving proper help through therapy. Instead of the sham sessions, their parents said they needed to justify their money requests. This is where things became intriguing. Recall that investment property they purchased using the funds I allocated for car repairs. The police located a concealed safe within the basement. Within it, they discovered USB drives that held extensive records detailing all the people they defrauded in the last half-decade. Not just people they knew, but also church members, the parents of their children's friends, and even nearby charitable organizations. They had detailed spreadsheets. These spreadsheets contained information regarding which fabricated tales of woe were most effective on which individuals. There was even a specific folder for me. They had created actual scripts that detailed how to manipulate me, using methods that had worked previously. "Lincoln is most responsive to emergencies involving the children," was a handwritten note from Freya. They also had a calendar that indicated specific dates on which they would request money from me, with the goal of maximizing my compassion while keeping any doubts I might have at bay. What was the total sum they managed to swindle from everyone? Over $400,000. That's just what we can back up with verifiable evidence. Elias attempted to flee once the arrests began. He managed to reach 3 states away before he was apprehended at a bus station. He had purchased tickets for a trip to Mexico. Freya tried a different strategy. She tried to negotiate, offering to provide testimony against anyone involved, even Elias, her spouse. The authorities refused her offer. They didn't actually need it. The proof was substantial. Both of them are likely facing a lengthy sentence behind bars. It's not just about scams, either. It's also about hiding dirty money and avoiding taxes. They're scheduled to be sentenced next month. Their inner circle completely fell apart. Do you remember all the encouraging words people left on Freya's social media? Those very same individuals are currently struggling to recoup their lost funds. Both kids were expelled from school after Elias and Freya's fraudulent charity operation, disguised through the PTA, was discovered. My folks finally understood the truth once the proof became public knowledge. Mom was completely distraught when she looked at those financial records, particularly the entries detailing how they'd played on her and Dad's feelings of guilt regarding their grandchildren. They've been fantastic with Matthew and Riley, attempting to provide them with some normalcy amid all this turmoil. My family's getting stronger now that the negativity's been eliminated. My cousin Rachel created a support system for everybody impacted. We're all undergoing therapy, trying to rediscover how to trust again. Some relationships might never fully heal, but at least we're now facing facts rather than deceit. Oh, and that statement Freya made, accusing me of envying their success. The investigators recovered an audio file on one of those USB sticks. She and Elias were chuckling about it. "Poor Lincoln," she said, "always trying to rescue everyone. Too bad he couldn't save himself." Well, who's laughing now? As for Emery and me, we tied the knot just last weekend. It was a modest wedding, only close relatives and friends we could truly depend on. Matthew was my best man. During his toast, he said something that brought everyone in the room to tears. "Thank you for demonstrating to me that being a family means." I'm sharing the truth even though it's really tough. I'm going to stop putting up new content from here on out. This part of my life is coming to an end. Financial gains don't hold any significance for me at this point. The most important thing is knowing that these two people who love to control others won't be able to cause any further harm. My children are protected, my family is recovering, and the truth has finally come out into the open. Elias sent me one final communication via his attorney. "I hope you're satisfied with the way you've treated your own flesh and blood." My reply was straightforward. No family connection can justify betrayal. To all of you who stood by me during this difficult time, I am truly grateful. For anyone else out there who is dealing with family who are toxic, follow your instincts and make sure you keep a record of everything. Always remember, a genuine family won't try to cheat you to demonstrate their affection.